Hello everybody! In this video, we will be talking about consent. For those of you that don't know, the Webster definition of consent is an active mutual process of willingly and freely deciding and negotiating sex of any kind with someone else.
So the law in Massachusetts is that it's illegal to have sex under any circumstances with someone who's incapable of giving consent due to incapacity or impairment. And incapacity or impairment may be caused by intoxication or drugs, or because the victim is underage, mentally impaired, unconscious, or asleep. Smith's policy, consent is explicitly communicated, reversible mutual agreement to which all parties are capable of making a decision. Consent given on one occasion does not mean that consent is given on all occasions.
To help me with the video today, there will be 4 main characters: French fry, curly fry, tater tot, and waffle fry. Going back to consent, it's important to know that it's also a shared responsibility for everyone who wants to engage in any kind of sexual interaction with someone. When there's a question or invitation about sex of any kind, consent has only been mutually given or affirmed when the answer on everyone's part has been a clear and enthusiastic yes. When we say everyone, we mean everyone. The kinky, the queer, the straight, the other, and all of the above. Anyone engaging in acts with another person's body are required to give and receive consent. Willingly and freely choosing means we and our partners feel able to make and voice any choice without being forced, manipulated, intentionally misled, or pressured. It means we are in an interpersonal environment where what we want is mutually meaningful and where we aren't in a situation where the other person is not in a position where they have or have had in our history with them radically more power than we have, and or has not used that power to influence or guide our sexual choices. It means we and our partners are and feel safe. It means we feel able to say and accept yes, no, or maybe without fear, and that our limits and boundaries are completely respected. Feeling free and able to say yes and to say no isn't only important to keep you from getting hurt or hurting others. It is important because a big part of a satisfying, healthy sex life and sexuality, one that people enjoy, is grounded in free choice. Participating means everyone is an active whole part of what is going on. It means we or a partner are treated like a whole person, not like a thing someone is doing things to. Jacqueline Friedman, co-editor of Yes Means Yes, explains that well here. Sexual consent isn't like a light switch which can be either on or off. It's not like there's this one thing called sex you can consent to anyhow. Sex is an evolving series of actions and interactions. You have to have the enthusiastic consent of your partner for all of them. And even if you have your partner's consent for a particular activity, you have to be prepared for it to change. Consent isn't a question, it is a state. If instead of lovers, the two of you were synchronized swimmers, consent will be the water. It's not enough to jump in, get wet, and climb out if you want to swim. You have to be in the water continually. And if you want to have sex, you have to be continually in a state of enthusiastic consent with your partner. Therefore, who's the person who should voice their desires and asks for a partner's own input and wants? Everyone. Not just one person, or one gender, or one person with a given kind of body or a given age. Obviously, someone has to make the first move sometimes and put it out there. Who does that is usually the one who gets the gumption to first. In a healthy sexual relationship where both people share mutual feelings of sexual desire, mutual desire to enact them, even if not always at the same time or on the same days, and both feel ready to fully participate in a sexual activity with the partner, there tends to be a lot of back and forth, rather than sexual initiation and initiation of consent being one person's doing. If you're going to be in the water, you should also recognize that the pH of the water we all swim in is a little different based on our identities that we hold, which affects dynamics of power and privilege. That's why open communication is key to a healthy sexual relationship. Be both empathetic to the water your partner is swimming in and the privilege that you may hold that might make the dynamics uneven. Talk about it openly and be conscious to continuous editing and listening to work on balancing the pH of the water you both swim in.
So that's a great question. I think the role of identities in consent is complicated. As humans, it's our understanding, our understanding of our identity grows and changes over time. In some cases, your identities give you power, particularly over another person. And a person in a power setting really needs to be cognizant of that power and give space for their partner to be really active in the conversation.
Well, consent means permission to give something, right? So, or to agree to something. And I think when you have different identities that you hold, especially different marginalized identities, it's sometimes harder to feel like you have the power to say yes or to say no to something because of where you may fall in a particular relationship, right? And I think that with oppression and systematic oppression, it's really hard over time for people to learn where they have power and where they can get access to power, in particularly smaller relationships with people, if that makes sense. So I think identity is who you are and how you live in the world and how you're seen in the world, and being able to speak up for that and learn how to do that is important for any aspect of where you're giving permission to either your body or to yourself, or even when you're in a space.
So one of the things that I think is important to understand is that the disability rights movement from its inception has always been, in a way, about consent, in that it's really always had a focus on affirming the self-determination rights of people with disabilities, that we have a right to control our lives. And so the conversation around consent really fits closely with the questions and concerns that have always been on disabled people's minds. Disabled people can also be treated sometimes as asexual, so they may also not be given information about sexuality and about sexual boundaries, and so there may be a need for more support, more information as people make the transition to adult relationships.
Consent is usually easiest to do well through communication in words in whatever language everyone involved can use and understand. There are other ways to express and affirm consent, but they're trickier, and when those ways work well, it's usually because the people involved already use and have used words with consent and have established good, solid patterns of communication with words. Consent with words is about mutually voicing what we want and don't want, what our desires are and are not, and what we do and don't feel ready for. Sometimes it's about one person asking for something and the other replying. Sometimes it's more organic. But when any of us say or express an "I want," we're voicing desire. Desire can be a strong feeling, so we might not always voice it delicately. The way we voice sexual desire matters when it comes to consent, though we need to be mindful of how our words express what we want while still leaving room for others to express what they want, especially since we won't always want the same things or want them at the same times. There are always ways to voice desires and seek consent that support consent and good sexual communication, and there are ways to voice desires or seek consent that can stifle mutual consent and communication and make it hard for someone to make and voice their own choices freely in response. Therefore, what are some clues someone doesn't care about consent? Well, these are a few of them. They act like they're in a big hurry. They act like your others owe them sex or they owe you sex. They're not asking how you're feeling or what you want. They seem only or mostly focused on themselves, or they are only focused on you and seem to have none of their own desires or limits. They don't really seem to be all there. They're ignoring or trying to change some of your stop signs, like pushing them away, not wanting to get naked, saying you're not sure or saying no. You feel unsafe or worried, unable to speak up or say no, or are worried they're unsafe or can't speak up. They react with anger, resentment, or self-injury when you don't immediately say yes to sex. They don't seem to have personal boundaries. If any of those things are going on, do yourself a favor and just get away from that person or situation immediately. If you are wrong, it's okay. No one has done any harm by not getting laid. To use the fry example for consent, always remember that it is freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. When you see red signs, these are signs that you should stop. The signs are, you or a partner are too intoxicated to gauge or give consent. Your partner is asleep or passed out. You hope your partner will say nothing and go with the flow, or you intend to have sex by any means necessary. That is not acceptable. Orange signs are signs that you should pause and talk. Those include, you are not sure what the other person wants. You feel like you're getting mixed signals. You have not talked about what you want to do. You assume that you will do the same thing as before. Or last, your partner stops or is not responsive. Green signs are just signs to keep communicating. Partners come to a mutual decision about how far they want to go. Partners clearly express their comfort with the situation. Or you feel comfortable and safe stopping at any time. This means that partners are excited. To help with my examples, I've brought 2 seagulls to help us out. So, if someone seems unsure about wanting to eat fries and they only seem mildly excited about it, then don't make them eat fries, unless that changes. If they only want to eat 2 or 3 fries and then don't want any more, don't make them have more. If they start eating the fries and decide they're too salty, have a conversation about it. If they want to eat more fries, should you order less salty fries? Should they wipe the salt off these fries? Or are they over with the fries entirely? Respect any and all of their choices. If you ask someone if they want to share fries more than once and they say no more than once and then change their mind that they now want fries, that is not consent. If they tell you that they don't want to share the fries and you say something like, "It's going to hurt my feelings if you don't eat fries with me," or you say, "I won't be your friend anymore if you don't eat these fries with me because I spent money on them," or "Eating fries together is a symbol of our friendship, so if you don't eat them, then you are ruining our friendship," or "All my friends eat fries," and then they eat the fries, they did not give consent. Why? Because you coerced them and manipulated them into eating the fries. They didn't do it because they wanted to. They did it to make you feel good, or to maintain the friendship, or to shut you up. That does not imply enthusiastic willingness, and that, my friend, is no bueno. So, does the concept of consent only apply to sexual encounters? Up to this point, we have only talked about consent when it comes to sexy times. The concept of negotiation around bodily autonomy goes beyond engaging in sexual activity, although that is the way that we most commonly reference it. So to help you out, especially during your time at Smith, here are a few examples. Imagine that your friend recently got their hair done and it is super fly. Before you touch it, you should get their consent. If they say no or ask you to stop now, that is exactly what you do. If you're excited to see someone, before you rush into their arms for a hug, take a moment to ask, "Is it alright if I hug you?" If not, ask them what they would prefer. Handshake, maybe a high five. If someone has a puppy, "Aw, so cute!" ask for their consent before petting the puppy, because you don't know if the puppy deals with anxiety or is a biter. Another way to think about consent is when it comes to emotional exchange. Although you may not be touching someone physically, when you're emotionally charged and you share that with someone, you're unloading your bag of stuff onto them. We never know what sort of day someone's had and if they are able to handle your stuff right now. A good consent question to ask is, "Hey, are you in a good mental space to listen to what's going on with me right now?" If they say no, don't be hurt or shut down. Maybe just find someone else in the meantime or ask, "When would be a good time to talk about this?" If they start off saying they can listen to your story but halfway through decide that it is too much for them at that time, then they can ask you to stop. Out of care for them, you should respect this to protect both of your mental health. Do you see how all of my previous suggestions were questions or statements that ended with a question mark? That opens the door to communication and makes it clear that you understand that while you want something, that it doesn't mean someone else does. Or or wants them with you, right then or without certain things they may need. Anytime we ask a question like that, where we haven't answered it first ourselves, we can take our turn answering it after the other person answers. So, here are some not so hot ways to voice desires and invite others into sex when it comes to consent. Most of those statements are not questions, they're conversation stoppers, not starters. They address one person's wants without acknowledging the other, or make someone else into a non-person. Even the ones that are questions aren't really questions. I know you trust me, right? Doesn't really leave room for the other person to answer. It basically answers the question for them and tells them there's only one right answer. It also makes having the wrong answer seriously loaded. Most of those statements are one person making decisions for everyone. That's not consent. Consent is about everyone involved actively making choices together. Therefore, what can consent in words and non-consent tend to sound like? Whether we're putting our desires out there, saying we don't want or aren't sure about something, or providing an answer to someone else's voiced wants.
My name is Julianne Opotnicki. I am an Associate Dean of the College and the Dean of Students, and my office is in Clark Hall at 50 Elm Street right here at Smith.
Hi, my name is Whitley Hadley. I serve as the Assistant Director of Multicultural Affairs. My pronouns are she and they, and I can be found in the Mwangi Cultural Center on the first level of the Data Center.
And I'm Chris Marai, and I'm the Director of Wellness Services, and you can find me on the second floor of the Shock Center, which is the Health and Wellness Center, if you know that.
Absolutely come and see me, the Dean of Students in Clark Hall. Another great resource for you is our Title IX coordinator, Amy Hunter, and she is located in College Hall.
Thank you so much for watching this video, Smithies. If there's one thing you should remember, it is to use your resources on campus and to trust your gut. We're all here for you, and we're excited to have you on campus. See you soon.